I definitely needed that. Just from, like I said, a mental aspect. You know what I'm saying? The previous weeks, sometimes I just felt like, I wasn't where I needed to be in terms of cutting and just getting that my knee was okay out of my head. Um, and like I said, I worked really hard last week in practice to just get that out of my head. And that first run, when I made the cut on the safety, I'm like, okay, we're almost there. You know what I'm saying? We have a couple more things we have to do to get where I want to be and be as electric as, I was last year. But that one right there, it gave me a sense of confidence and like, all right, this is out your head. You know what I'm saying? Your knee's fine. Just do what you do. And yeah, it felt great.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in. It's turned out to be a beautiful day here in the state of Michigan. Hope you're having a great one. We're ready to go. Talk a little Michigan football with you. We jump right into it, and we've got a couple important things to talk about today, including JJ McCarthy and where he sits midweek, getting ready for conference play in his junior season. Will Michigan, after what transpired last week against Bowling Green, will they revert back to the ground game rather than the aerial assault? We'll contemplate that coming up. And of course, it's the start of the conference season, and Michigan taking on Rutgers. No more of these games that you're just wondering if Michigan's going to score 40 or 50 points and by how many points they're going to win it by. Now, that wasn't the case on Saturday night. A little fastball. They're a little different. I guess curveball would be the way to proper analogy there. A little curveball last week with the Falcons, which has us where we're sitting today. Like if McCarthy came out and was like he was through the first two games, something like 28-30 and a couple more TDs. The Heisman Trophy is not out of the question. And, that's what you get when you put up those kind of stats. And then when you have the kind of game that he had, well, it does bring up some questions that we have to get to and wonder about. First, I want to tell you, you're wondering about who's available, what's going on this week in practice, recruiting, the transfer portal. The basketball schedule was just released this week, and looking all the way, there's some talk on the Den about how the basketball team's going to fare. All of that, all day, all night, all week on the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. We'd love to see you over there. I'd like to see you over there and say, hey, I joined up because I watched the podcast on YouTube or listened to the podcast, and I wanted to see what it was all about. And you give us a shot, and I think you'll stay around. You'll like it. I mean, if you're a Michigan fan, you're like some Michigan State fan or some Ohio State fan, you might be like, hey, this is all Michigan talk all the time. Guilty, when it comes down to that. So Michigan is favored by 24 coming up on Saturday. Most people, myself included, that's the people that I talk with, and myself included, think that's a little bit too big of a number. Hey, Vegas is in business not for, they're out there to win some money. That's a big number that they have put up. And a lot of people are like, oh, man, the Scarlet Knights are coming in. Watch out. And maybe that's going to be the case. That's not what Vegas thinks, where they got Michigan winning by 20 or favored by 24. The game, again, on the Big Ten Network. And so you'll have the exact same broadcast crew. That includes Jake Butt, who will be in the Big House. That's good. And Brooke Fletcher as well. And I was just watching the Big Ten Network today, and they're going to have their game day. It's a great day of college football. We all can agree on that. But they'll have their game day inside the stadium. They'll be set up there. So, the Big House will be featured on BTN. And that's never a bad thing. So those are particulars. The particulars when it comes down to the game. And, I come on here and I always tell you if you're watching this live and you have any questions, you have any points that you want to get across, it's always great to hear from the people. Wolverine fan 2 is anxious to see what this week brings after whatever that was last week. That's I think a good way to put it. And that's where I'm at. What you expect is in, Jim Harbaugh Monday on JJ McCarthy after throwing the 3 picks and almost another one and a fumble. He said he didn't want him to change. He wants him gunslinging. And, for me, gunslinging is an interesting term for a quarterback. When I think about a gunslinger, I think about a quarterback that's a little bit reckless. That, he's just out there, he's coming in, he's taking his 6-shooter out, he's just firing it. He's Brett Favre is the one that comes to mind. Brett Favre never saw a throw that he couldn't make. And a lot of times he said, you know what, I've got the arm, I'm firing it in there. I don't care about the ramifications. I don't care if the guy's hand's right there, split second. And JJ, he's got a little bit of that. If you want to be a great quarterback, I think you do have to have a little bit of that mentality. Like, it doesn't matter if that guy's right there. I'm going to fire this thing 50 yards across the field because I believe in my arm. I'm going to put it right there, and I'm going to show everyone. I'm going to show off this arm. And I thought it was interesting that Harbaugh said that he wanted him to be a gunslinger. Wolverine fan, you're anxious, and I think that's good. I mean, I think that's a good way to put it. I don't know if it's good that you're anxious. I mean, not good. You want to just, try to chill out. But as you might expect, there are people going, way overboard or way undercutting it. This is what happens when big things happen with your football team or your football program. You get people, nope, nothing. It was fine. There's no deal at all. Nothing. I saw a lot of that. And then I saw a lot of, what was the first thing I was typing McCarthy's name in yesterday? I wanted to see how old he was, 20. And somebody had a podcast. I don't know who the person was. Maybe it's a great podcast or whatever. It was a pretty catchy headline. It said, "One bad week or a fraud." And I was like, wow, fraud. But that's how it works. So that would be a little bit, on the other side, extreme side. Can you find the middle ground there? I'm not over here telling you. I think people that watch this podcast, I think most Michigan fans agree. Like, JJ McCarthy is it. This is what Michigan fans have been waiting for decades. They've been waiting for somebody like JJ McCarthy to come in and have the kind of game that McCarthy has. And, and it was on display last year, a little bit when he was a freshman, but it was on display a lot last year. And then this year, through the first 2 games, it was like, this is really a dream come true. A quarterback at Michigan who can fire it, make all the throws, got everything that you'd want, it seems like. And then Saturday night happened, and it's hard not to be a little anxious, Wolverine fan. How would I put it? I would say that it's hard not to be a little shaken by what you see. Now, that's always the thing about being an observer. These guys, they're resilient. They go out there. McCarthy's ready to go out there and play right now, probably ready to throw 50 passes, whatever it takes to win the game. And, he's not going to be thinking about last week. I don't think. I do think that it would be interesting, so I think he's going to be okay. What will be interesting is when he fires his next bad throw. Certainly if he threw a pick, like a pick six, I don't like saying things like that. Let's say that was in the first half and he threw a pick six. Now people would be like, oh, this is the absolute worst case scenario. Well, there's a lot of worse things that can happen than that, but then it would be very interesting to see how he would bounce back. I do think, Harbaugh is the one, and being back on the sideline here, somebody that has been through that meat grinder at every level and, can tell him firsthand about, how that works. And you heard a lot of that from Harbaugh on Monday. you still let it rip, and all the different throws, and here are the quotes that I put up, from Harbaugh. He still wants him to be a gunslinger. He doesn't want him to change, but of course, they do go through all of those throws, and and talk about what he was doing there, and if you didn't hear Harbaugh, I'll paraphrase something like, he didn't have the right, he didn't have the eyes where he wanted them. I think that might have been on the first one where the tight end, he was supposed to let him come through. I don't know if that's eye discipline, but his eyes wandered a little bit, just didn't see that throw through where he wanted it. The other one, he talked about his feet not being, and you got to have your feet. And then there was another one he didn't like where he was like a fade away in basketball, and it ended up being a completion. And then there was the last one. He shouldn't have thrown, he was trying to make a play down the sideline and lobbed it up there. It's a little bit, I'd say a little bit difficult for me because I try to evolve myself. Prior to Patrick Mahomes coming into the NFL, a lot of, you listen to me, I say, I want a quarterback that's risk averse. I want a quarterback that is not throwing sidearm. I want a quarterback not off platform, not against the grain, not against his body. I want a quarterback that's fundamentally sound and able to see the throw and fire it in there. I don't want a reckless quarterback. I don't want a gunslinger, that way. I want a selective gunslinger. But then Mahomes have come along, and, he's been around for a little bit now where these younger QBs, they all think they're Patrick Mahomes. And we saw this from JJ McCarthy in his very first game when he had that 69-yard touchdown to, Baldwin, the transfer, way over on the right side, running around, threw it all the way over to the other side that went in. Everybody, wow, what an incredible. That's part of the game now. That's part of the position. McCarthy plays that way. So, you take, the thing about the first year, you saw some of that. And then you're wondering, is he going to be able to harness this? And then last year, in the first half of the first conference game against Maryland, it didn't look so good. JJ, remember the ball was on the ground twice, squirted away from him because he was running around, didn't see what was going on, and got hit from behind. Both of those fumbles were recovered. And by the second half, the game looked like it really slowed down for JJ. And there was he was close to throwing a pick late in that Maryland game, but Michigan won, and he looked like he settled down. And then there was in the first drive against Iowa, everybody, myself included, was like, this is going to be huge. How is he going to respond? And he was brilliant on that first drive. There was a fumble. Donovan Edwards was able to recover it back by the goal line, which could have been a disaster. A lot of times people don't think of those things because if you recover it, you kind of like, woo, but but then after that, I don't know if he made a play after that one and he was pretty good, at Iowa, besides that one that went squirting back to the goal line. I don't think he made a throw. Like he threw a pick against Indiana. Yeah, it was down there in the red zone. You never want to throw one, but if you're going to, that's the spot. And so, he was trying to force one in there. And then he didn't, the one against Penn State, even though not everybody agreed with me, is kind of a fluky, the ball that was a fluky to me. I don't know how much, that's your problem. It goes on the stat line and everything, but I wasn't all that bothered by that one. And then in the Big Ten championship game, Michigan was up. They looked good. He was coming off the fabulous performance against Ohio State where, even though his completion percentage was, people are like, this wasn't great. He played a great game. Like all the circumstances, everything that, he played a great game. And then, he had 10 seconds where he stood there at Lucas Oil Field and finally threw one down and threw a pick. And he hadn't thrown. He's been so great all year long. And then came the college football playoff. Where he threw the 2 pick sixes. And that one, that one stayed with you a little bit. And that was a little bit what we saw on Saturday. In addition to those 3 picks, the touchdown that he threw to Kojo was not a great throw. It was an underthrow. You could say it was a 50-50 ball. I didn't, if I'm evaluating it, That's not a throw I want to see. And then the first drive that was 3 and out in the second half, he damn near fumbled that one. That was bad ball security. I mean, his knee ended up being down, so people don't talk. His knee was down. It was down by like that much. I mean, that's a lot. That's a very loose game. So I think it's hard not to be a little bit shaken. So I said all that stuff that sounds a lot really negative and everything. I don't think you need to be on the verge of a meltdown if, you're a Michigan fan. But I do understand it. Like, somebody said, was telling me on Monday, I was down at the press conference. I was like, Demetrius Brown in 87. I'm like, well, I don't think, 7 picks, it wasn't a D Brown situation in 87, but it wasn't good. And I know a lot of people, let's just turn the page. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to turn it and get it to Saturday. I don't like for people, you can react any way you want. I'm not somebody that overreacts. I'm also not somebody that underreacts. Like, no, that's you're being no. A little bit shaken, a little bit anxious, like Wolverine fan says. I think that's appropriate. I think the verge of a meltdown, or I also think on the other side, like, just one bad game. There's no problem. There's nothing to see. Are you crazy? Stop saying anything about it. I think also, I just don't disagree with either. And that's normally how I operate on things. I see it, and I think I'm pretty calculated, and I'm not prone to hot takes or crazy. I evaluate it, look at it, and tell you, what I see. I think a lot of other people are trying to, as fans. Sometimes, they want to be like hot takes because they want the views, and a lot of people in the media are the same way. And then a lot of fans are like, they've got to go the other way to cushion everything and, think everything's fine. So I don't know. We're all different how we look at it. I'm going to take some feedback on this, and then we're going to get to the game plan on Saturday because I'm interested to see where you are all at. I've done nothing but sing McCarthy's praises since, he's arrived on campus, loved what I saw. And, then came Saturday night where it's hard not to be a little bit shaken. Richard always brings the good points. He says JJ did not look well. Perhaps he was distracted. Yeah, I don't know. He didn't look well throwing the ball with the picks. I don't like, he looked a little like peckish, or he had a bad tuna sandwich or something like that. I distracted. I don't know. I didn't see that part. I didn't like the throws, a few throws. And I didn't like that near fumble. I didn't like that. Michael, skipping ahead to what we're talking about, MB saying, we will run the ball. But JJ and the receiving core will bounce back and cover the 25 points easily. Oh, we got a little prediction in there, too. Richard, nice to see Corum himself, though. Yep, and I took it from, it was old Mark, who, and a few people saying, they didn't like the audio. Oh, I tried to fix that. I'm hoping everybody was able to tell that it sounded a little bit better. Richard jumping on the prediction tip here. He likes the prediction. Run game is healthy. Richard also thinking that Michigan will be Michigan this week with Jim Harbaugh back. Yeah, I don't think that's not like Jim Harbaugh is going to be back. I think a lot of people feel like it was different without the head coach because it was different. Now you can say, he got too cute with the 4 head coaches. You can make that case. I'm not really going to argue that either way. I mean, there was a chance these games, it's one of the things for me, like I talk about it all the time, when you play games that are scrimmages and that you're going to win by 50 points, a lot of times you don't end up winning them by 50, and you can look a little because everybody's like, you're resting guys, you're treating it like a scrimmage. The fans don't show up until, midway to the first half, and then they're leaving by the third quarter. There's no tension at all in the game. The coaches are even planning on it. Half of them are talking about it. Yeah, we want to get the depth in there. Those kind of things happen when you have a bunch of layups like that, and it can affect you, I think, even in the off season. You get a tough non-conference game. Everybody's like, hey, we better go out there and focus because we've got this big game coming up. You can say anything you want, leadership, and you're Michigan. in the off season, but you tell everybody, hey, we've got to be ready to go September the 2nd. And then they probably next to like, we don't really have to be ready by September the 2nd. We really have to be ready by noon on September the 23rd, this Saturday. I don't know. That's just the truth and how things work. I mean, these guys are smart enough where they understand that. Brian talking about he didn't like the route from CJ. Yeah, I don't know. Like I didn't, I asked Harbaugh specifically about what he saw on tape, and he didn't throw either of them under the bus. He talked about JJ. He didn't say anything about any routes or anything. So I was expecting him, I think that was on the second pick, to say, yeah, they weren't on the same page. He didn't say that, though. I was a little bit surprised, or I was wondering. I don't know about being surprised, but I'm going to take him at his word there. OT, JJ's passes versus BG were pretty awful. Hopefully he'll recover. Yeah, that's it. WF2 says we need common sense. Gunslinger making good decision when the play starts breaking down. Yeah, like I said, I think of Brett Favre. When I think of gunslingers, and Favre and it was his last game against the Packers in that freezing cold game at Lambeau. Threw a pick six and a couple other ones, but Brett Favre also is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and he's a Hall of Famer, and he won a Super Bowl, and and Matt Stafford also fit the bill for the longest time, where I thought was a gunslinger, going out there. He's just going to let it all ride on his arm. And I think there's some things that comfort me. Maybe they'll comfort you when I, tell you about quarterbacks. There's a lot of quarterbacks that go on to be great quarterbacks and have games like JJ McCarthy. When Peyton Manning was in college, he was ridiculed a lot because he could never win a big game. He couldn't beat Florida. But he's like, he chokes against Florida. Peyton Manning's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. There was a quarterback at Michigan named Tom Brady who lost his first two starts lost to Notre Dame and Syracuse. A lot of people are like, move on from this guy. He's a minus athlete, and he doesn't really have the greatest arm. Like, why not go to the superstar behind him? He ended up turning all right, even in college, even after he had fought through with Henson, won the job, and went on and was pretty good in 99, really good, actually. Played really well. And we know what he did in the pros. And there's a lot of guys, I would imagine, I didn't do this, but with Mahomes, who didn't start the Chiefs his first year. Remember, they sat him down the entire time behind Alex Smith. But, Texas Tech wasn't all that good of a team. I'm guessing if we worked through some of those tapes that you would see there would be a few games. I don't know about a lot, but you'd see a few games from Patrick Mahomes. And you'd say, this guy's reckless. This guy throws the ball. And it looked like, so, for me, almost every one of the QBs, that I thought about the great ones. There were times where, people were like, yeah, this guy, that's not it. And then they're able to persevere, and they do it all right. All right, let me get this question in for you. You can answer this. I've got my own opinion on it, but I would like to hear yours. And the question is, after what transpired with all the turnovers, the 4 turnovers, the couple other close ones, and then obviously the 3 interceptions, will this make Jim Harbaugh want to go back to what led Michigan to this resurgence the last 2 years, and that is the ground attack, ground and pound, protect victory by just handing it off and not letting JJ be that gunslinger, even though he talked about it. Come out, Blake Corum, he's feeling it. Donovan Edwards. These guys, I feel like it's almost obvious. Corum and Edwards didn't practice barely at all during fall camp, and they were just ramping up during these easy games. coming back from some surgery, both of them. Whatever was deal with Edwards with his knee and his hand. They were ramping up to this point Saturday. And then you have this game. Like, even though Harbaugh was like, yeah, we're going to let him rip and everything. And, Michigan, we want to be 50-50. I don't think that they're going to come out and they might end up being 50-50 in this game. But I think the game plan when they sit around, they're saying, we want to attack this team on the ground. We want to protect our quarterback. We want to get our quarterback out there and get him some nice high efficiency throws where we get his confidence back. Like, I don't think they want to say, let's go 4 wide and let's let JJ just feel like, hey, let's just test it. Is JJ the JJ from East Carolina and UNLV, or is JJ from BG? Let's go out, let it fly. No, I don't think that would be a good idea. I would not, if I was in the meeting room, I'd say, no, you got Corum and you got Edwards. Let's if it's one or the other, so you do both. Every time you have this argument, people are like, oh, you're advocating running the ball every down. Michigan didn't do that the last 2 years. They didn't actually run the ball every down. But am I advocating that Michigan is going to go back and look more like what got them in this position, and that is giving the ball to Blake Corum a ton? Yes, I think I would do that. And I think that's what Jim Harbaugh is going to do. Now, if you see JJ McCarthy out there firing, like first series, they're just whipping it around and, a run here or there, but it's more like, hey, this team really is Air Michigan. Well, then I will come on here and say, hey, guys, I'm really surprised. And I think Greg Schiano's thinking like me. So maybe he's going to make, isn't that what you would do? Like if you're Greg Schiano, say, let's make McCarthy. The way we're going to win this game, you're Greg Schiano, you got to find a couple turnovers somewhere. Where are you going to get those? Line up and dedicate extra people to the line of scrimmage and make JJ McCarthy beat you. And maybe Michigan will see that and say, hey, we have to. Like the numbers are here. Like, let's go. Let's let it fly. And you can make that argument. You can probably sit out there and say, wait a second, that's what Michigan should do, because that's what Schiano's going to do. Will Michigan have the guts to say, oh, we're going right back to McCarthy? I think they're going to force the run a little bit. So I think the game's going to be kind of tight in the first half. Overall, I don't think this is going to be an upset. I think Michigan's going to win it. Now, I don't think they're going to win it by 24, but I think they're going to win it by 20-something. I made my prediction. I haven't finalized it, but let me see what I was thinking about at least right now. 33-16, 26-30. That's pretty handily. 33-16 right now is what I'm thinking. So there's the question to you. Will Harbaugh go back to the ground and pound? Each side of the argument here. Schiano's going to try to make JJ McCarthy beat him. He has to. So he's going to dedicate extra players to the run, and you would say he might have done that regardless of what happened last week. And now you'll say this is a great test to see if Michigan will do it. It's also, even before I look at any of the feedback over here, you can make the case that if Michigan wants to attract potential top quarterbacks that want to throw the football in college, that it would behoove Michigan, especially if Schiano is over there taking away the run. Instead of banging your head against the wall, you might want, Bryce Underwood to say, hey, look at McCarthy. He had that week last week. He's right back up on the horse. And there's a lot of football coaches. If a guy fumbles, you don't, tell him ride some pine and hold that ball and you're going to be carrying it for the next week and you never see the light of day. No, they put him right back up on the horse. Get out there, give him a carry, even in a big spot. I might be talking myself into, Harbaugh thinking, the best way to get JJ back is actually to let him come out, and especially if the numbers are there, let it fly. Let it rip. That's what Harbaugh says. Let it rip with McCarthy. So now I'm giving you fuel for the other side. What do you think? Let's see. Jason, football coach himself. This week is going to be a good test for our front seven. Rutgers has 632 rushing yards between the running backs and quarterbacks, 9 TDs, 407 yards passing with a couple touches. Tutties. Don't see them changing it up. Will be a good test for us. Oh, yeah. They're going to be in there running that mesh point. I agree. This is a game where Chris Jenkins, Cam Good, Rayshon Benny, Kenneth Grant. Going to be a big game for those guys. Michael with some feedback. The tailback for Rutgers got player of the week this week. I'm sure he will not repeat that thanks to our nasty defense and that he and the rest of the team will see. Here's Gary. He likes the show. Rutgers will make a big difference in the first quarter. After that, the game will be all Michigan. Midweek predictions. Not bad. JP, Rutgers D is currently tied for 7th in points against. This will be a dogfight and a very good game. We have to minimize mistakes. Yeah, you sound a little bit like a coach. Jason says he's going to call this game Battle of the Backs. Who's got the edge? Pun intended. I guess we'll see who's prepared correctly and who just prepared. Hey. Oh, Mark. Going back to Brett Favre's first outing, worst in history. Only played a third-string emergency, won the game. The rest, Hall of Fame. MB, Go Blue, is up 25 or more points. This game is over. Trepa going to the pros. CJ Stroud is on his way to being a great NFL quarterback, but he couldn't beat Michigan. CJ Stroud has no offensive line and no running game, so he has to throw a lot for the Texans. He did a nice job. Is it a little weird seeing him, hook it up with, Nico Collins, the Ohio State to Michigan connection? Yeah. He couldn't beat Michigan, you're right. He played well in those games, though. But, yeah, look at Michigan. You know how many Michigan fans, if you had to call, it's a long way to go before CJ Stroud, we know what he's going to be for an NFL quarterback. But I had to listen to the majority of Michigan fans, if they weighed in on CJ Stroud, they can't, you can't help yourself. I get that. You really can't help yourself. He's Ohio State. He's a system quarterback, day one read Johnny or whatever. And these guys all suck, when they go to the pros. Why would any Ohio State, all of those things I heard rolling out. Not taking each individual player and evaluating them. And, yeah, you can look at some of the systems things and you can, put that in, but way too much. But, again, it's a rivalry stuff. So I really don't. I guess I don't expect you to come in and have a unbiased, opinion on anything OSU. I found it hard this week because I was going through okay, I like this game. I'm going to pick this game because I think based on where the game is being played and a quarterback and a running back and an offensive line, I think Notre Dame's got a really good chance to win this game coming up. And I'm going to pick Notre Dame outright. And then, if it doesn't take very much to say, oh yeah, screw, Ohio State, they don't have an offensive line. They did play well last week, but I think a lot of Michigan fans are going to pick Notre Dame to win this game because they hate Ohio State. Now they hate Notre Dame too, but they hate Ohio State more. Even though it'd be better for Michigan when they beat Ohio State if Ohio State beat Notre Dame. right? Okay. JP says if he was a betting man, he would take Michigan on the money line and under 44. Well, 33, 39, 49, I think that's going over. The O-line will show up this week. What's up, Matthew? What do you think about the game coming up on Saturday? What do you think about McCarthy? Will Michigan switch things up? Trepa is going with Michigan will take what the defense gives them. So that's what they should do. Matthew thinks Michigan covers 42-10. Of course, Michigan will want to establish the run. Jim's not shy of the physical game. That's the game that's won between the tackles. JJ will be kept on a shorter leash this week. OT, the exact opposite. He thinks he's just going to let him rip it. Let it rip. That's it. OT now making prediction that big time deep shot, Roman on a deep post. Michigan safely not covering by -10 or so 3 times seems to be a pattern. I don't know. In gambling, as soon as you start talking about patterns, I mean, Vegas is going to adjust for any kind of pattern. So I don't know. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone. Like, it's been 3 times in a row. Michigan's not covering. And I right now don't have Michigan predicting the cover, but I don't know. Never take that to the bank. Those kind of trends. Rutgers will stack the box, test JJ's arm since he had a bad game. Yes, that's the game plan, Ty. No question. Let's see. Put a little star next to that one. There's no doubt that's it and how it's going to go. And Brian, yeah, that's where we were talking about those inside guys are going to have to be important in case there's some players that are not going to be available. Coach Harbaugh said you don't break a stallion. That's right. That's it. Here we get somebody new. Michigan, go blue. I really want to see us dominate on the ground because that's the best recipe to beat Ohio State. What this turns into is that I feel like I can agree with everyone. Like, you're right. It is the best way to beat Ohio State. They haven't been able to handle the physicality. Michigan has beat them up. That's why they've been able to win that game. That's why they've been able to win the Big Ten. But then you can come back and say, yeah, but when they get to the big stage in the college football playoff, you have to be able to throw it because you can't just line up and be, physical like that against Georgia. And there's some truth there. A lot of truths in a lot of the things that, that we're saying and what's going on here, right? I don't know. Ohio State fans, you wonder how they feel. I don't know. Like, it's hard to climb into an Ohio State fan's mind. Myself, as soon as somebody moves on to the pros, I don't really care. Like, I'd like to see Michigan players do well. You liked them when they were here. It's cool to see them do well. It helps recruiting to see guys doing well in the pros. That's all good. I stop with the root against CJ Stroud, root against Fields. Now, you want to do it because, that helps us in recruiting. I can understand that angle, but there's probably a lot of Ohio State fans that makes them sick, that he has to throw to Nico Collins. I don't know. At some point, you have to, unless you're just a college fan and just everything. And, college football is number one for me. That's my number one sport. So I get that. But I also really liked Chris Spielman. I've got a lot of friends. I'm going to admit it. I don't say I hate to admit it, but I am going to admit it. I don't hate to admit it. A lot of my friends are Michigan State fans. And when the Lions drafted Aiden Hutchinson, I saw a lot of my friends that said they were also Lion fans. They're like, oh, this guy's going to be a bust. I mean, that's what they're saying. Oh, terrible pick. So they were all saying. And then last year, when he's playing great, they start coming around a little bit. But begrudgingly, I mean, as begrudgingly as you could, I guess he's okay, until finally. I mean, you should have seen him through Hard Knocks. Like, could they put this guy's family on anymore, I guess, it's hard to transition, especially when a guy's a rookie. But I think they like him. Yeah, Notre Dame wins. They'll be in good position. Mark says dominating on the ground is the best recipe. He just says ends it. Ends it right there. When your pro team is the Lions, it's hard to like any player since Mel Farr. Mel Farr superstar. Well, that's not true, Mark. I liked Mel Farr. Myself, actually, I liked his commercials more locally, the superstar. But I'll put forward Barry Sanders. He was pretty easy guy to root for. No, but I get it. I get it when it comes down to the Lions. So that's it. So have we come up with any real clue on what Michigan's going to do? Well, while you want to have JJ back, even if Schiano is coming out and taking away the run, I do believe that Michigan is going to want to exert their will that way and test that to see if they can come out and really ring the bell right away. And if they are able to do that, I can see them staying with it. You can protect your QB, and then you can get him on some high efficiency throws, and you can get his confidence back, and then you can work the game plan off of that. I'm not sure, although, you could make this argument. It'd be great to be in the meeting. And, if you were able to talk with Harbaugh, say, hey, coach, are you really going to take what the defense gives you if your game plan is that you want to protect your quarterback a little bit after last week? What's the answer there? The answer could be like, yeah, we're going to take what the defense gives you. Roman Wilson single covered, or Colston Loveland or Kojo, if they're bringing the safeties up. But the more I think about it, and that is what Schiano is going to do. If you can run that ball, even when they're trying to take it away, nothing's going to help that quarterback more than some play action. Those safeties are going to bite, and the whole field would be open. And then you got JJ, who's able to let it rip. It's exciting. I like that we're moving into the conference season where, the games matter, a Big Ten East game. And, you've got an opponent that, were you really worried even Saturday when it was 14-6? You weren't. Really, you didn't like it, but you weren't worried. You might have been worried after that 3-and-out in the first half. There you go. That's it. OT, you're right. Mark is not worried, and I'll let him get the last word because he says he's going to be watching effort and focus. Seems scrimmagey other than JJ's half and the D tackles, all three. Can Michigan step up to the Big Ten effort? Key question. And then Penn State and Ohio State in the college football. 3 levels to climb. Yeah, I'm not overly worried either. A little bit shaken after Saturday, but, being able to talk through it and, feel like if Michigan was playing Penn State or Ohio State, Saturday, well, I think the feeling would be a lot different. It's really not taking anything away from Rutgers. Michigan should be able to beat Rutgers even after the way they played. Now, how they do it, how they come out, all those things will be pretty interesting. Coming up on Friday, we'll be here. It'll be a football Friday. It is one of the great days in college football with Michigan playing at noon and then just scores of other games all day and all night. It is going to be a great weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for smashing that like button and hitting that 5-star on the podcast or leaving ratings. Anybody that takes the time to do that, I really do appreciate it. It helps this show. The more that happens, the more it feels like, this show could continue on. So again, thanks so much. And I'll talk with you on Friday. Till then, have a great day.